Hello, and welcome to another week of the Storied Arcs podcast. I am your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And today we are setting up, in a spoiler-free way, our final section for now of the social media series, Mindset, from Vault Comics, Zack Kaplan, John Pearson, and Hassan.
It's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah,
you say it fast enough. Yeah. You say it. I was going to do, this is probably the most white guy thing. I was going to do Oates Main.
I
was going to put too much into the vowel.
I think
what you said is exactly
Allow.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's from, you mentioned Vault Comics, which is the first time we talked about Vault as a publisher. We'll get into a little bit about them. But much like our last discussion with Thumbs, this is one volume, but it's 6 issues. And here we are in June 2022 to January 2023. So as we're recording this, as about contemporary as you can get in terms of our idea of our relationship to social media and at least in this book, our relationship to technology in general and how it is infused into our lives. So as a reminder, when we finished up Thumbs last week, that final issue came out in October 2019. So we moved from October 2019 to June 2022. So we've had a fairly big jump. And if you have been alive and around in the world, some fairly significant things happened in those 3 years, 2.5-ish years. So, we've had a giant shift, a large shift in society, specifically in this country during that time. And so now to move our social media decline timeline this far forward to as close as we are now to the present, pretty much as we can be, it's not going to be as difficult to put those current day lenses on and examine this book, because a lot of the ways we feel about social media and technology in general, the way we feel about it now is pretty close to where we were a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think that's
that
true.
change hasn't been quite as big,
Right. I was flipping through the art, and I'm just like, this book is just stunning.
It's I like that we have a bunch of books that have different art styles. That wasn't planned, but you bring in different creators and different artists, different styles, different ways to look at the world and storytelling. I think we've had some really cool and diverse artists, and we got another one here in John Pearson who we'll talk about in a bit here. We'll start with the writer, Zack Kaplan. Zack Kaplan's been pretty busy of recent years. Pretty much all creator-owned independent stuff. I think he has 2 issues of Nightwing during the end of the Rebirth run, which was during the Rick Grayson era, which wasn't fantastic.
Not his fault.
But there were 2 issues featuring the character of the Joker's daughter. It was like a 2-issue mini arc, and that's kind of the only for hire work he has of note. Most of his stuff is done at Image, Vault, Dark Horse, things like that. Over at Image, his notable books are, first one is Eclipse with Giovanni Timpano, Port of Earth with Andrea Muti, and Metal Society with Guilherme Balbi. Those are all Image books. Another book he has at Vault is this book called Beyond Real, which is pretty cool. It has different artists.
You hear Liana Kangas talk about that book.
Yeah, Liana Kangas did. I think
they were very excited.
She contributed to issue 4 or 5 or something like that. I think each issue had multiple artists in it.
And Liana had an exclusive limited variant for the number 1.
I think so.
So lots of participation with the project and only minimal appearance. But
the main covers, all the main covers for Beyond Real were done by John Pearson. But they had variants by, I think, the various artists that contributed in that specific issue. But having different artists and art styles in that story made sense for kind of what the story was about, which is kind of like the story is called Beyond Real. So take for that what you will in terms of how we view the world and simulations and things of that nature. Over at Dark Horse, Zack Kaplan just had a pretty cool book finished up called Kill All Immortals with artist Fico Ossio, which just recently announced in the solicitations that volume 2 of that is coming, which is pretty cool. It is a what's it called? It's like they build it like Game of Thrones and Succession together. It's basically a bunch of immortal Norse era Vikings how they've moved through the world, and now how they live now, which is basically like the family in Succession, except they're basically immortal Norse gods, so they can't die.
Yeah.
So when someone breaks from the family, it becomes one of them against all of them, and it's kind of this big bloody like axes and broadswords and things like that, but everyone's wearing like really nice suits and stuff. It's a pretty cool book, and so the second volume, as we're recording this, I believe is scheduled to come out in the fall, so like I think August or September of 2025, which is pretty cool. Another book they have that Zack Kaplan did at Dark Horse from a couple years back is called Breakout, with artist Wilton Santos, which is a kind of interesting high school set book, where like these extraterrestrial floating cubes come down and they start abducting children, like high school age kids, and it's like an extended metaphor about like active shooter drills and things like that. It can get kind of heavy and the metaphor is a little strained there, but it's a pretty cool book. I want to say that was 4 issues over at Dark Horse from a handful of years ago, like 03 or 23 or 24, something like that, but that was a pretty cool book. I got a couple of books over at Aftershock worth noting. One's called The Lost City Explorers with Alvaro Saraseca. Sure, we'll go with that. Sorry for butchering that name. And then a book with Piotr Kowalski called Join the Future. Piotr Kowalski is an artist that I like a lot. I should check this book out. They work with Kyle Starks on the Where Monsters Live series, which is a pretty cool book. So I should probably check out Join the Future, since it's got an artist that I like and a writer that I like. I guess 2 more books I'll mention here. One at Mad Cave, which I think is either ongoing or just finished up with artist Chris Sheehan, called Dark Empty Void. I think it's ongoing, or the last issue or first arc just came out, and then a book at Scout called Forever Forward with Arjuna Susini. So a couple things that have been out. Most of the stuff is relatively recent, but he's pretty prolific, and it's someone who works mainly in the creator-owned, smaller press, indie publisher kind of space, which again we support and think is really. And then I guess we'll end here our creators, since we only have. Look, Hassan Ospinalau, we've mentioned him like on every Zero Pod the last handful of times, because he has become one of the most prolific and best letterers in comics. So we've said his name a bunch, so we're not going to cover him here. We've covered him a bunch, but his stuff is just incredible, and the stuff he's doing now in books and kind of where he came from, covering comics and moving into being a letterer and becoming so good, Eisner Award-winning letterer, is really awesome. But we'll cover John Pearson, who's the artist here. Over at Image, kind of the 2 main things in Image I think he's done is a book called Infernals with Noah Gardner and Ryan Parrott, which I think is kind of there are some of the creators who have worked on Power Rangers, another book that they've done, not Power Rangers book, but kind of team people that have worked on Power Rangers. And then he worked as the colorist, or part of the art team, with Adnan Arke on a book called Blue and Green, which is written by Ram V, and which is kind of a book about jazz that's really cool. And as a team, on Arke and as the artist, and John Pearson as the colorist, or painter, they won like the best like multimedia art team or whatever it is. They won the Eisner for that for Blue and Green, which is pretty cool. And those guys, that same team, Ron B, on an Arke and John Pearson, they also contributed some stories to the Batman Urban Legends, the most recent version of the Batman Urban Legends anthology over at DC, and they also. Pearson's got a book ongoing right now at Boom called In Bloom with writer Michael Conrad, which is it's kind of a Last of Us thing. It's kind of a like fungus have taken over and people are mutating. They get infected and they mutate. They don't become zombies like Last of Us, but it's this idea of this kind of fungal infection as people kind of mutate and have various fungi growing out of their bodies and heads and things like that, and kind of what that does with society. But that's currently ongoing at Boom right now.
Yeah. It seems like a cool book. That one has crossed my path, but to my shame,
I read the first issue. It's a little freaky. People with mushroom heads and things like that. It's a little weird. But yeah, it looks very cool. That's a book I need to catch up on, because I Michael Conrad's a writer that I like a lot. They work a lot with Becky Cloonan, doing stuff at DC together. So him and John Pearson together on a book, a creator-owned book over at Boom, kind of right up my alley. So In Bloom is one I need to catch up on, definitely.
Yeah. Very cool. Are we ready for synopsis?
Sure, yeah. Well, actually, real quick, we'll touch on Vault. Vault is relatively new.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Vault, they've been around about 10 years, a little under 10 years. They were founded in 2016. They're looking to be, they're modeled, I think, very much like an Image, where in terms of the kind of deals I think they give creators and things like that. They are, they're I don't know if they have, I haven't read enough Vault books personally to know if they have kind of a style to them, but they do have a lot of, it's mainly more genre based. And when we say genre based, that's science fiction, fantasy, horror, some mix of those three, and
they have either maybe an imprint or maybe directly they have a lot of like young adult or like young reader stuff.
I think they may have. I think they were recently purchased by Atheon Books, and so they may be increasing on that. But I think a lot of their stuff ends up being horror, science
sci-fi.
fiction. Yeah, I mean, like I think Brandon Sanderson, the prolific fantasy writer, has done stuff with them. Tim Seeley has written for them, so there's going to be kind of a horror vibe with that as well. Donnie Cates as well, horror, fantasy, things of that nature. So
Cy Spurrier's there.
Yeah. So it seems to be a space that is cultivating, whether that's intentional or it probably is, but like kind of a niche focus on books like that have crossover in those three kind of genres there. That's kind of what Vault is about. So if you see a Vault book out on the stands, good chance it's probably going to be one or a mix of those three kind of genre styles: sci-fi, fantasy horror, sci-fi, something like that. And Mindset falls into that category. It's very much a sci-fi book, maybe with some horror-ish elements.
I was going to say their elevator pitch is immaculate.
Yeah, so why don't you jump into that?
Well, okay, so the first sentence of the Vault synopsis is the elevator pitch. And I think it's just 10 out of 10. The Cult of Control, Black Mirror meets The Social Network in the mind-bending sci-fi techno-thriller mindset where mind control is only an app away for fans of Dave Eggers' The Circle and The Every. That's a pitch document right there. Yeah, and that's a pitch document that's like, check, 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 check. You said not only like, here's a show that it's like, here's a movie that it's like, and here's a novel made into a movie that it's like for fans specifically of Dave Eggers' fiction. So anyway, I just thought, I don't know if Zack or John came up with that or if that was their editor, but either way, just chef kiss emoji.
Well, that's them putting on the table like these are the kind of people that we think will like this book, that we drawn to this book naturally,
Yeah, it's what you're supposed to do.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So anyway, when an introverted tech geek accidentally discovers mind control, he and his friends do something unexpected. They put the science into a meditation app to help users break their technology addiction. But as their mindset app achieves a dangerous cult following, lies, conspiracies, and murder come to light. Are they helping people or controlling them? Free your mind. Who's in control? 6-issue series.
Yep.
Relatively small cast, gets in, does what it's supposed to do, and kind of tells its story, asks its question. Because I'm not sure this story is like here to make a singular point, as it is to raise questions.
Yeah, I
think that's true of all the series we've done. That's what I mean. To me, that's what separates good art from propaganda.
And I also think I think that's probably more in line with this book in terms of the time frame it comes out in. Because this is the most recent book, 2022 to 2023, when our relationship to social media and technology, because this book really is a lot about our relationship to technology and specifically to our phones. Our idea of that hasn't shifted too much to where we are now as we're recording this in 2025. And so the idea of making a declarative statement on something just feels out of place, because our relationship to it is more nebulous and a little more tenuous, even though it's so essential in our life, that I think what they want to do is people to ask questions of themselves. They know that they don't want people to be told, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this right, yada, yada, yada. This is the good side, this is the bad side, you know? So they have an understanding that people are naturally, that maybe not naturally suspicious, but everyone's self-aware that we're on our phones too much.
Right.
So them, in this case, I think they just know they just got to give the reader just a little push, just face them in the right, in the direction they want. And then our own relationship to technology, whatever that is, it's probably too much. And so just by pointing us in the direction they want, our mind fills in and we start asking these questions of ourselves that the book is asking, as opposed to the book telling you the answers. Because that's just bad storytelling. That's bad art. If they just say, here's what it's supposed to be, this is what you're supposed to do, this is the definitive way to think about it, that's not good.
Right.
I mean, they come down on a side, but they still throw the answers out there for you to chew on.
Yes. It to me, it's one of those, like, the premise has that moment in it of like they accidentally discover mind control.
Yeah.
And then they don't immediately burn it.
Yeah.
So whatever they're doing next is the even if it's this benevolent, well-intended gesture. Yeah, it's going to be the law of unintended consequences. And like, I think what we know now is that in Silicon Valley and the tech world, whether they find something on purpose or accident, once they find it, they will never decide not to. I mean,
absolutely. Yes.
That's what we're doing with AI right now. Mm-hmm. Like, you could get a room of 100 people and say, how many of you are really excited to use AI in every app on your phone in the next year? Maybe 3 people will raise their hand, but every company is pushing it in every commercial as if it's in demand. Yeah. And I'm just
as if it's already there. Yep.
How can this demand be so far? Like, how can this marketing be so far from demand? They're trying to create the demand for the thing they're peddling.
Well,
and I'm like, here's the thing. If you just use AI behind the scenes and made a great product, no one would care whether it was made with AI or not.
That's the thing. They're trying to skip demand. They're just trying to give it to people. You know, they don't care if you want this or ask for it or don't want it actively, whatever. It's just going to be there. It's just going to be incorporated. You're right. It could just be in the background, and it is in the background of a lot of stuff that I don't think people don't even know about, and no one's complaining about that. So why doesn't that just signal to people to just use it and don't tell anyone about it and be fine with it? You know, it is, but I think you're 100% on the nose. The idea that once you discover something, once you figure out something, like even if it's just you and your laptop at your desk in your home, once you have that idea, like you can't bottle it, or the people in Silicon Valley are not going to bottle it. It will get out there. They will use it for something, and it doesn't matter if the intentions initially were good. Everything always gets corrupted, and this is a book where, you know, they can throw the question out there, be like, oh, you know, they threw it out there. We're only using this for good. You know, we're putting this out there to help people. We're not actually going to mind control them. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, reading this now, you know, everything's going to go wrong. Like that's what the story is. It can only go wrong. You know, there's no world in which that turns out right and everyone's happy and like, yay, they wanted to do the good thing and they did the good thing. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, if it was too easy, it wouldn't be real.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's just not. Technology moves. You know what I'm doing officially. It's a wavy line, right?
Sine curve.
Yeah. So it'll go straight up, and it's like, look at all this great progress, and then bang. Yeah. We didn't see that coming. Yeah. Unintended consequences, backfiring.
Except you probably at this point you probably should see it coming, you know. But it's the Arrested Development line, right? Like it didn't work out for all those people, but I think it's going to work out for us.
Yes. Oh you know, my gosh, that one's getting a lot of currency lately.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But that's a recurring thing, and I think it's one of those things that ties all these 4 stories together. This idea that you said of technology, like you have an idea and you throw it out there. It doesn't matter if your intentions are good or like or you had the intent of creating a child army, and that was the point. If you throw it out there, it's never going to stay the way that you had it in your mind.
Especially when your competitor starts doing it, right?
Yeah,
anybody can reverse engineer.
You can't put that toothpaste back in, and it will always inevitably end up at the worst, most extreme, most violent end. Like that's the place it's always going to go.
Well, not to make this a recurring theme of our zeros this summer, but is that not the basic premise of Dark Knight Rises? Bruce Wayne finds this technology that will save the world, clean energy, very vague. And someone figures out how to make
it into a bomb.
Make it into a bomb. So he watersheds the whole thing because he's like, the world isn't ready for it. And, like the naivete of that to say, first of all, I can't release something. So he's the opposite of the mindset guys, right? It's like, oh, I see all the possible things. And unless I can have 100% certainty that this will go exactly the way I intended, no other way, I'm not going to use this thing. Well, that's not possible. You never have 100% certainty.
Just if it's not possible, that the technology is already out there. So, effectively, the possibility is the same whether you release this energy and people can use it, or you don't. It can still become a bomb.
To me, it's like that thing of Olympic records of I think it's specifically sprinting records where they say the world record held steady for 100 years or something like that.
Yeah.
People thought that was as fast as you could run. Then someone broke it, and the record lasted 4 years. Because once someone realized, oh, it is possible to go that fast, everybody started doing it. And not everybody, but elite runners started doing it. And then they found new ways to push it again. And it was like, oh my gosh, they broke it 4 years later. And then it broke again 4 years later. And it's like humanity, that is what humanity does. Whether it's with the human body and racing or technology or whatever, we're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
We're going to, wherever we think the limit is, we're always going to push past it. Because you're right. Once someone does it, then everyone does it. Because everyone sees it's possible. So, that sets up our the final book so far in what we have called Social Media Summer. So, next week we'll be diving in and really trying to find the threads from all four of the books that we've talked about and try to maybe put together some kind of larger global picture of it all.
Yeah, I don't want to rob Mindset of its own discussion. So if it starts going too much that way, we may have to call an audible and do one big recap episode at the end.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Maybe
to cross-pollinate.
We'll try. No promises, but we'll try to put the larger recap towards the end because we really do want to give Mindset its own discussion as a story as itself before we start trying to find connected threads all the way through. So, Mindset volume, just one volume, but volume 1, issues 1 through 6, for next week.
Awesome. Follow us all the places. StoriedArcs.com will give you all the links you need. That's the only thing I'm mentioning this time. I've learned my lesson throughout the summer. And StoriedArcs.com will set you straight, keep you on the path wherever you're listening right now. Give us a 5-star review, share with a friend, and we will see you next week for Mindset.
Peace.